The 8-year-old's lips were swelling fast. His breath came in sharp gasps as his mother frantically searched her purse. "EpiPen! Now!" Maya shouted in perfect Arabic, pointing to the emergency kit behind the bar. The crowd froze, then moved as one, following her commands in a language half of them understood but all of them felt. 12 hours earlier, he'd been nobody. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Miami's elite had gathered for the Dubai Children's Hospital charity gala. Tech moguls, real estate magnates, philanthropists whose checks could fund small countries. The air buzzed with English, Spanish, and Arabic conversations, punctuated by champagne glasses and soft string music. Maya Saleh moved between tables with practiced invisibility. 27, black vest, efficient smile, the perfect catering professional. What guests didn't know? Nursing school by night, fluent Arabic from her Lebanese grandmother, and a sharp eye for details others missed. Tonight's star was Karim Al-Hassan, billionaire hotel magnate turned healthcare entrepreneur. At 45, he commanded attention without trying. Tall, silver-threaded hair, custom tuxedo. His hospitality empire stretched from Dubai to Florida, making him worth more than some countries' GDP. Maya had worked these events for 3 years. She could read the room like a survival skill. Tonight felt different, tighter, more desperate. Karim's team hovered anxiously. His assistant checked her tablet obsessively. The European investors at Table 4 held the keys to his medical tourism expansion. As she refilled water glasses, Maya caught fragments of Arabic conversation. "If we close Amsterdam tonight, we'll have capital for the pediatric wing." This wasn't just charity, it was a business showcase disguised as benevolence. The dessert course arrived. Rosewater panna cottas, mini baklava towers, phyllo cups filled with pistachio cream and honey. Beautiful presentation, but Maya's trained eye caught the problem immediately. Allergen labels were purely decorative. Traditional Middle Eastern sweets told parents nothing about tree nuts, dairy, or other dangers lurking in elegant packages. He approached James Morrison, the catering manager. "The dessert cards don't show allergens clearly. Should we add proper labels or pull the nut items from children's tables?" Morrison barely looked up from his clipboard. Sophisticated crowd. They know what they're eating. No time for changes. Sophistication's the priority tonight. Maya made a mental note. 7:15 p.m., allergen concern raised and dismissed. The auction began. A week at Karim's Dubai resort sold for $80,000. Cameras flashed. Donations flowed. Karim looked like a man who owned the world. But Maya noticed the cracks. His wife's nervous phone checking, his son's bored scrolling, his assistants shaking hands. Even billionaires lived in cages. Golden ones, but cages nonetheless. As dessert service began, Maya watched table 12 carefully. She'd overheard the mother speaking Arabic to her husband. "Khalil can't have pistachio, but these cards don't mention nuts." The woman discreetly checked her purse, probably for an EpiPen, while maintaining her social smile. 8-year-old Khalil eyed the desserts longingly in his miniature tuxedo. His parents tried to distract him, but Maya knew that look. Children and forbidden sweets rarely ended well. He was organizing the final service items when Karim appeared beside her, jaw tight with frustration. The European investors had complained about service timing, and she could see his control slipping in front of people who mattered to his empire. "Excuse me." His voice carried an edge that made nearby conversations pause. "I need efficient service, not social hours." Fair criticism. He had been talking to guests instead of serving, but his tone carried something darker than professional correction. "Of course, sir. I was ensuring dietary accommodations. I don't need explanations." His voice rose slightly, drawing attention from surrounding tables. "I need you to focus on your actual job instead of playing medical consultant." The invisible contract that kept these events functioning, mutual respect between server and served, cracked audibly. Maya felt dozens of eyes assessing the situation. She chose her response carefully. "You're absolutely right, sir. I'll focus on the dessert service." But Karim wasn't finished. The European investors were watching. His empire's expansion hung in the balance, and in his world, authority meant never backing down publicly. "Your job is to serve dessert, not make decisions." His voice carried clearly across nearby tables now. "You're nobody to make those calls." The words hit like a physical blow. Conversations stopped. The string quartet seemed to play more softly. Maya felt the familiar burn of service industry humiliation, but also something else. Crystalline clarity about exactly who Karim Al-Hassan was beneath his charitable rhetoric. "You're nobody." Maya nodded once, expression neutral. "Of course, sir." She returned to her work, But the damage rippled outward. Sympathetic glances from some guests, uncomfortable silence from others. The pretense of mutual dignity that allowed these events to function had shattered. At his table, Karim's wife looked mortified. His son kept scrolling. The European investors seemed less engaged than before. Sometimes how a man treats his staff reveals more about his character than any charitable donation. Maya continued the dessert service, but her attention stayed locked on table 12. Despite his parents' vigilance, Khalil had managed to sneak a bite of phyllo cup from his father's plate. The pistachio cream that had drawn so many compliments was about to teach everyone present a lesson about the difference between luxury and safety. Within seconds, Maya watched Khalil's face begin to change. Khalil's transformation happened with terrifying speed. His lips swelled visibly. His breathing became labored wheezing. His mother, Amina, shot up from her chair with practiced panic. She knew exactly what she was seeing. "Khalil!" she gasped, hands going immediately to her purse. The sound cut through elegant ambient noise like a knife. Conversations faltered, heads turned. The string quartet seemed to sense the shift. Maya was already moving before most people registered the emergency, but chaos has momentum. Well-meaning guests offered conflicting help. "Sit him up. Get water. Make him throw up." A doctor from the hospital board pushed through the crowd but was tables away. Maya reached Khalil as his father tried to force him upright, exactly the wrong position for someone struggling to breathe. He switched to Arabic, her voice cutting through the panic with unmistakable medical authority. "Everyone step back. He needs space and air." The effect was immediate. Arabic speakers responded instinctively to her confident tone, stepping away. English speakers, hearing the sudden shift to authoritative Arabic, also paused. Someone who knew what they were doing had taken charge. Maya knelt beside Khalil, whose face was flushing red as swelling spread beyond his lips. Classic anaphylaxis progressing fast. He had minutes before this became fatal. "Amina," he said calmly, using the mother's name to establish connection. "You have an EpiPen?" "Yes, but my hands—" "Stay calm and help me. First we get Khalil flat. Omar, help." He guided the father in easing Khalil down, positioning him slightly on his side to protect his airway. Her hands steady, voice calm, but mind racing through emergency protocols. "Someone call 911 now," she announced in English, then back to Arabic for the growing crowd of Arab guests. "I need everyone back. Can someone turn off that music?" The music request was strategic. It would signal to the entire room that this was a medical emergency, not a minor disruption. Within seconds, the string quartet stopped, and sudden silence made clear to everyone that something serious was happening. "Have you used the EpiPen before?" Maya asked Amina. "Once, 2 years ago." "Good, you know how. I'll guide you." Maya helped position the auto-injector against Khalil's outer thigh, pressing until they heard the click of injection. The epinephrine would take minutes to work, but she could already see slight improvement in his breathing. That's when Karim pushed through the crowd, agitated by the disruption to his carefully orchestrated evening. "What exactly is happening here?" he demanded, more concerned about the event than the child. Maya looked up from where she knelt. "Anaphylactic shock from food allergy. He's stabilizing, but we need paramedics for monitoring." "Food allergy? That's impossible. Our food is clearly labeled." Maya felt cold clarity settle over her. This was her moment. Stay silent, and let everyone pretend this was unforeseeable, or tell the truth. She chose truth. "The dessert labels don't indicate allergens clearly. I mentioned this to the catering manager earlier." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Guests began examining dessert cards at their tables, realization dawning. The elegant calligraphy that read "Traditional Middle Eastern Sweets" suddenly looked negligent rather than sophisticated. Karim's face darkened. "That's not your concern. Your job is to serve food, not make accusations." But Maya was no longer an invisible server who could be intimidated. She was a medical professional managing a pediatric emergency, surrounded by witnesses, including several doctors, paying very close attention. "My concern," she replied in Arabic for Khalil's parents and other Arab guests to understand, "is that a child nearly died from preventable negligence. The pistachio cream should have been clearly marked." Dr. Sarah Martinez, pediatric allergist from the hospital board, pushed through to kneel beside Maya. "How's he doing?" "EpiPen administered 3 minutes ago. Breathing improved, swelling stabilizing. Monitor for biphasic reaction." Dr. Martinez nodded approvingly at Maya's clinical assessment, then looked at the dessert display. Were allergens clearly marked? The silence was damning. Several guests had gathered around the dessert table, examining the inadequate labeling. "This is completely unacceptable," announced Mrs. Patricia Whitman, major hospital donor. "At a children's hospital charity event, this is inexcusable." Karim's perfect evening was unraveling in real time. European investors watched with clinical interest. His staff looked mortified. Lifestyle photographers had pivoted from capturing charity elegance to documenting crisis management failure. There seems to be some confusion about labeling, Karim said, trying to regain narrative control. I'm sure it was an oversight. No confusion, Maya interrupted clearly, speaking both languages for maximum impact. I warned the catering manager specifically about this issue. I suggested better labeling or removing nuts from children's options. He said there wasn't time because the priority was menu sophistication. The crowd's reaction was visceral. Parents looked horrified. Medical professionals looked angry. Hospital board members reassessed everything they thought they knew about Karim's commitment to children's safety. James Morrison appeared at the crowd's edge, face pale as his dismissive response to Maya's concerns was publicly aired. That's not exactly how, he protested weakly. Are you saying I didn't raise allergen concerns, or that you did make the labeling changes I suggested? Maya's logic trap was perfect. Morrison couldn't deny the conversation without looking dishonest, couldn't claim he'd made changes without contradicting obvious evidence. We were focused on overall event success, Morrison admitted. And how do you define success? Because a child nearly dying from preventable negligence doesn't seem successful to me. Mrs. Whitman stepped forward with the authority of someone who'd funded hospital wings for 30 years. Mr. Al-Hassan, I've never seen anything like this. Safety protocols at this event are completely inadequate for an organization claiming to prioritize children's health. Karim couldn't dismiss or intimidate Patricia Whitman. He represented old Miami money and commanded respect no amount of new wealth could purchase. Mrs. Whitman, I appreciate your concern, but one minor incident. Minor incident? Omar, Khalil's father, stepped forward with parental moral authority. Sir, my son stopped breathing. That is not minor. The confrontation had evolved beyond class conflict between billionaire and server. This was a father confronting the man whose negligence had endangered his child. Of course you're right, Karim said quickly, recognizing the danger of appearing unsympathetic to a victim's family. I'm grateful your son is safe, and we take this very seriously. But Maya could see Karim's response was still tactical rather than substantive, managing optics instead of addressing underlying causes. Mr. Al-Hassan, he said with the calm determination learned from years of studying while exhausted and persisting when everything seemed impossible, you keep saying you take this seriously. What does that actually mean? What specifically will you do to ensure this never happens again? Question hung like a challenge. The crowd quieted, sensing they were witnessing unprecedented accountability, a public moment where real consequences might follow real failures. The silence stretched across the ballroom like a held breath. Karim Al-Hassan, accustomed to commanding rooms like this, faced the most challenging moment of his public career. Around him, carefully constructed evening in ruins, European investors whispering concerns, hospital board members looking gravely disappointed, lifestyle photographers documenting what would likely define his reputation for years. Maya could see rapid calculation behind his eyes. Damage control assessment, legal liability consideration, response evaluation for minimal long-term business consequences. He recognized the look from years reading people through service work, but also from medical settings, where administrators weighed cost against care. Dr. Martinez broke the silence with medical authority. Mr. Al-Hassan, Maya's question is completely reasonable. As someone treating pediatric allergies, this incident was entirely preventable with proper protocols. Are you committed to implementing those protocols across all your operations? Brilliant intervention, reframing Maya's challenge from server insubordination to legitimate medical safety concern. The distinction mattered enormously in a room full of people who understood institutional accountability. But Maya could see Karim still fighting the fundamental power shift that had occurred. His wealth, connections, carefully cultivated benevolent image, none meant anything facing a child who'd nearly died on his watch due to organizational negligence. Dr. Martinez, he said, attempting conversational control, I absolutely agree safety is paramount. That's why I've donated millions to pediatric healthcare, why I'm here supporting this hospital. Actions, Maya interrupted quietly, voice carrying clearly in hushed ballroom. Not donations, not speeches, actions. The word hung like a challenge. Around them, she saw agreement nods from parents, from medical professionals dealing daily with rhetoric reality gaps, from donors questioning whether their contributions funded genuine care or elaborate public relations. Amina, Khalil's mother, stepped forward with quiet dignity of a woman who'd spent the evening watching her child nearly die while surrounded by people whose primary concern seemed maintaining social composure. "May I speak?" she asked, addressing the crowd in accented but clear English, cultural politeness but also subtle power, claiming space in conversation where she held ultimate moral authority as victim's parent. "My son could have died tonight, not from rare disease or unpreventable accident, but from negligence, from people who knew better but chose presentation over protection. Devastating precisely because restrained. No tears, no dramatics, just clear maternal assessment of institutional failure. In our culture, we say, the one who knows and does not act carries the weight of what follows. Tonight, people knew and did not act. Moral weight of Amina's words settled over the crowd like a blanket, no longer about catering mistakes or labeling oversights, fundamental questions of responsibility, care, gaps between public virtue and private character. Karim's face cycled through expressions: anger, frustration, calculation, finally something resembling recognition. Smart man, successful precisely because he read situations and adapted quickly. Situation now, evening destroyed, reputation damaged, only path forward through genuine accountability rather than crisis management. But public fault admission, especially before business partners and investors, contradicted every instinct that made him wealthy. Mrs. He paused, realizing he didn't know her name, despite her child nearly dying at his event. Amina Al-Zahra. "Mrs. Al-Zahra, you're absolutely right. We failed your family tonight. No excuse for that. A start. But Maya saw it wasn't enough. Apologies without action were just more public relations, and the crowd sensed that." Mrs. Whitman spoke with unquestioned Miami philanthropic authority. "Mr. Al-Hassan, people want not just failure acknowledgement, but concrete prevention plans." Reasonable request, but Maya saw Karim struggling. Concrete commitments meant accountability, timelines, measurable outcomes, giving up flexibility to quietly let incidents fade once immediate attention died. Maya made a surprising decision. Instead of continuing challenges, she offered Karim a path forward, not as gift, but professional assessment of what real accountability looked like. "If I may suggest specific, implementable changes to prevent recurrence." She walked to the dessert table, where inadequate labels still displayed elegant but dangerous minimalism. First, comprehensive allergen labeling at all food service operations, not just ingredients, but clearly marking 8 major allergens in multiple languages. Second, staff training for recognizing and responding to allergic reactions. Third, emergency medical supplies readily available and clearly marked at all events. Fourth, systematic menu safety review for any children's events. Practical, specific, achievable suggestions. More importantly, transforming conversation from blame to solutions. Dr. Martinez nodded approvingly. "Those are exact hospital protocols, standard pediatric healthcare practice. And," Maya continued, looking directly at Karim, "implementation within 30 days across all your facilities, with public documentation of compliance. Aggressive, but possible timeline. Public documentation requirement made commitment real rather than rhetorical." Karim stood silent, wrestling with magnitude of what was asked. Systematic changes across his business empire would be expensive, time-consuming, requiring admission that current practices were inadequate. But alternatives, continued scrutiny, damaged hospital relationships, skeptical investors, reputation as someone prioritizing image over substance, were far worse. 30 days, he said finally, voice carrying clearly across silent ballroom. Full implementation across all facilities. Public compliance documentation. The commitment drew approval murmurs, but Maya wasn't finished. And funding for free allergen response training for food service workers throughout Miami-Dade County. Not just your facilities. All facilities serving children. Audacious addition transforming Karim's personal accountability into broader community benefit, rather than just fixing his operations, funding systematic improvement, preventing similar incidents region-wide. Brilliant on multiple levels, demonstrated genuine safety commitment over mere compliance, created positive community impact for reputation rebuilding, established Maya as solutions-focused rather than just critical. Karim looked at her with something resembling respect. "That's actually a very good idea. It's what someone genuinely caring about children's safety would do," Maya replied evenly. Words carried implicit challenge. Prove genuine care through actions costing you something and benefiting others, rather than reputation-enhancing, tax-beneficial donations. Mrs. Whitman stepped forward with Miami Philanthropic Authority. Mr. Al-Hassan, if you're serious about these commitments, I'd like hospital board oversight and implementation verification. We have expertise ensuring changes are meaningful rather than cosmetic. Exactly what Maya hoped. Institutional accountability outlasting evening emotion, ensuring promises became policies. I accept that oversight, Karim said meaningfully. Dr. Martinez, Mrs. Whitman, I welcome your involvement, developing and verifying these protocols. Remarkable transformation. What began as billionaire server confrontation had evolved into collaborative effort, creating systematic change, benefiting thousands of regional children. But Maya had one final element completing the evening's accountability and respect lesson. One more thing, she said quietly, voice carrying clearly in attentive silence. Karim turned with both wariness and genuine curiosity. Earlier tonight you told me I was nobody. You were wrong. He gestured toward Khalil, now sitting up on the paramedic stretcher, breathing normally with childhood's resilient curiosity. I was somebody who could save that child's life, somebody who recognized danger when others prioritized appearance, somebody who spoke truth when others stayed silent, looking around the ballroom, making eye contact with dozens who'd witnessed evening events. Every person serving you, cleaning your facilities, preparing your food, managing daily operations. We're all somebody. We have knowledge, experience, insights, making your organizations better and safer, but only if you're willing to listen. Undeniable moral authority, transforming personal insult into broader dignity lesson, respect, value of every person's contribution, regardless of social hierarchy position. Karim stood silent, processing not just words, but profound perspective shift they represented. His entire worldview built on wealth and power hierarchies. Tonight demonstrated knowledge, courage, moral clarity could be more powerful than either. You're right, he said finally, speaking both languages. I apologize. To you, to Mrs. Al-Zahra, to everyone witnessing my behavior tonight. Pausing, looking around at faces watching with varying skepticism and hope degrees. I called you nobody because I feared what your knowledge revealed about my failures. That was wrong, and I'm sorry. More than Maya expected. Not just insult acknowledgement, but recognizing fear and insecurity, motivating it. Dr. Martinez stepped forward with practical suggestion, cementing evening transformation from crisis to catalyst. Mr. Al-Hassan, I propose Maya serve as consultant on safety protocol implementation. A medical background, cultural fluency, and demonstrated child safety commitment make her uniquely qualified, ensuring changes are effective rather than merely compliant. Perfect suggestion, providing Maya meaningful professional development while ensuring tonight's promises became tomorrow's policies. I would be honored to have Maya's involvement, Karim replied meaningfully, if she's willing. Maya looked around the ballroom, at Khalil breathing normally on his stretcher, at parents whose terror transformed to cautious hope, at witnesses who'd seen powerful institutions held accountable through individual courage. I'm willing. Paramedics prepared transporting Khalil for overnight observation, standard anaphylactic reaction protocol. As his stretcher moved toward exit, the boy looked back at Maya with childhood innocence directness. Thank you, he said. You're welcome, sweetie, Maya replied. Quiet exchange carried across the ballroom with pure human connection clarity, transcending social boundaries. As paramedics left with Khalil and parents, remaining guests processed what they'd witnessed. Not expected elegant charity evening, but institutional failure, individual courage, public accountability, systematic change possibility. European investors, rather than being deterred by evening chaos, seemed genuinely impressed by resolution. One approached Karim with surprising perspective. Mr. Al-Hassan, tonight we saw exactly the crisis management and institutional learning capacity we seek in healthcare partners. Your accountability, willingness, and systematic change implementation demonstrate leadership qualities our investment requires. Unexpected evening conclusion. Genuine accountability and collaborative problem-solving impressed serious business partners more than seamless presentation hiding underlying problems. Maya began gathering service items, preparing to return to invisible support staff role. But Mrs. Whitman approached with life-changing offer. Maya, based on tonight, you'd be excellent for our nursing scholarship program. Full tuition, books, guaranteed hospital position upon graduation. More than Maya dared hope, Not just evening action recognition, but concrete support for professional future she'd worked toward through years of night classes and exhausting double shifts. Yes, I would be very interested in that opportunity. As crowd dispersed, Maya found herself surrounded by people exchanging contact information, discussing implementation timelines, planning follow-up meetings. She'd begun evening as hired help, ending as key participant, creating systematic change, benefiting countless regional children. Karim approached one final time, extending his hand, acknowledging their new colleague relationship rather than employer-employee. Maya, tonight you taught me something I should have learned long ago. Thank you for your courage, expertise, and integrity. He shook his hand, seeing genuine respect rather than crisis management calculation. Thank you for listening and for choosing accountability over ego. Leaving the Ritz-Carlton that evening, Maya carried more than satisfaction of saving a child's life. She carried knowledge that individual courage, combined with systematic thinking and moral clarity, could create change extending far beyond any single crisis moment. The nobody had become somebody not through wealth or position, but through willingness to speak truth, take action, hold power accountable to stated values. In a world where systemic problems often seem too large for individual action, Maya demonstrated sometimes all it takes is one person willing to say, "This is wrong," and "This is how we fix it." Real measure of evening success wouldn't be headlines or social media coverage, but children who would be safer, because someone had courage transforming crisis moments into lasting change catalysts. The truth always rises to the surface. Tonight, Maya Saleh proved some truths are powerful enough to change everything, if someone's brave enough to speak them and persistent enough to see them through to action.